Hi, my name is Amy, and I recently had to switch schools. At my old school, I never thought too much about the racial makeup of my class. There were a few students of color, but most of my classmates were white like me. But at my new school, I was going to be the only white girl. For the first time in my life, I had to think about what it's like to be a minority. How they have to deal with being the minority in so many situations. I felt guilty for my fear of being the only white girl. Things are so much harder for people of color than they are for white people. What did I have to complain about? But it didn't change my nervousness about going to a new school. What if people there hated me? After all, the more I read online about racism, the more I realized that non-white students had good reason to mistrust people who looked like me. I didn't want to be seen as the bad guy. My first day at the new school, I was really self-conscious. I couldn't tell if people were actually staring at me or if it was just in my head. It seemed like some of the students were whispering about me and judging me. I tried to remind myself that this was probably how non-white students at my old school had felt, and that I needed to learn what it was like to not always be part of the majority. At lunch, I had no idea where to sit. Did the other students have cliques based on race? If so, would anyone welcome me into their group? I ended up finding a table where a black girl with glasses was reading a book. I asked if I could sit across from her. She just nodded without looking up from her book, and I started to worry again. Did she not want to talk to me because I was the white girl? After school, some of the students were hanging out in the courtyard or on the basketball courts, but I didn't feel like I was part of any groups, so I just walked home. When my parents asked me how school was, I said fine. Then I went up to my room and started texting my friends from my old school. I told my friend Marcia about my fears, that everyone hated me because I was white. We talked about the things I read online, about the discrimination that people of color face from white people, and how I was afraid of being seen as the enemy. I asked if she thought I should try explaining this fear to some of the students at my new school, but she said it was probably best for the two of us to talk about these issues. Also, she asked, did I really have any evidence that the people at my new school disliked me because I was white? I admitted I didn't, so the next day I sat with the girl with glasses again at lunch, and I introduced myself instead of just sitting silently. Her name was Kendra, and she was a sophomore like me. She wanted to be a writer someday, which was why she was always reading. We had a great conversation, and she told me to meet her in the courtyard after school, and she'd introduce me to some friends. She introduced me to her group, and I got along well with all of them. We ended up going to get fast food, and I told them about my family moving, and how I missed my old school, and had been nervous about coming somewhere new. I didn't mention my skin color, just the fact that I felt out of place here because I was new. A couple of the girls in the group had moved before, and agreed that it was hard to leave old friends and make new ones. One of them talked about being the only black girl at her old school. I realized that while race could definitely play a part in people's feelings of displacement, the fear of going to a new place and starting over was common, no matter what your skin color is. After that, things got rapidly better. I just tried to be kind to everyone I met in my new school, and soon I was surprised to find that I was popular. I'd never been popular at my old school. I hung out with Kendra and her friends, but also made friends with people in some other groups. I tried playing basketball with the jocks after school one day. At first, I was terrible, but then, by pure luck, I made a great shot. Then I really was the queen bee. At least for a day or two, until they realized it had been a fluke. I'm still much more conscious than I was of what it's like to be a minority. I'm not saying that my experience means that I understand what life is like for people of color. When I'm feeling like I don't belong, I talk to Marcia, who reminds me that I still have friends back in my old town, but that it's awesome how many friends I've made at my new school, and that being kind to others can help you belong anywhere. Did you like this story? Share your experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.